Whitney, it's good to be with you, and I appreciated you coming out when Dr. Rowe was in town. He's the chairman of the VA committee, and I know that there was an interview that day with Krem highlighting some of the work that we've been doing at the VA. So for the Spokane VA, I am working right now to get it designated a teaching hospital so that residencies can be done at the Spokane VA and help meet an important need for doctors. We've been working to get the emergency room open 24/7. I've led on legislation for self-scheduling so that veterans can go online or use an app to schedule their appointments rather than having to call the 1-800 number. And that is being implemented right now at the VA. It's a pilot project, but they're moving forward with that. I've worked on medical record legislation. I hear a lot from veterans, especially in the rural areas up north in Colville or Republic, where it's very difficult to get an appointment. Sometimes they have to wait a while, and being able to go into the community would make a big difference for them. The key to that is being able to get their medical records. So I've introduced some legislation that would allow just for the medical record to be put on their ID, on a chip on their ID, so that they could access that through a secure system no matter where they seek care. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was at the White House as President Trump signed the VA Mission Act, which is a larger piece of legislation that I was proud to support, that it will streamline the process for veterans that are seeking to get their care in the community. And this is for veterans that have been waiting for a while, or just maybe it's more routine care and they would prefer to go to the doctor in the community. My vision is that veterans and the VA, I want the VA to be the center of excellence, especially for post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, suicide prevention. The suicide rates are way too high among veterans. So veterans need to know that they can always go to the VA, but if it's more routine care, being able to go into the community, I think is an option that really works well, especially when you live in rural areas.
You talked a little bit about making that a teaching hospital, specifically with regard to our new WSU Medical Center here in Spokane. What kind of timeline are you looking at, do you think, to make that a reality?
Just a few weeks ago, we had a community meeting with both the WSU Medical School and the UW-Gonzaga Medical School, as well as the VA and some people from the VA committee here in Washington, D.C. that flew out to Spokane to participate in this meeting, to be talking about what will those next steps look like. What is it going to take? There are slots currently that are available to the Spokane VA for the residency program. There's 15 current slots, and that was a more recent development. And then I've also supported legislation that provided for an additional 3,000 residency slots across the country that I would like to see the Spokane VA be able to access. And the goal here is to have medical students do their residency or part of their residency at the Spokane VA so that they are getting that experience of caring for veterans, but also perhaps they would desire then to have a longer term at the Spokane VA. We know that wherever someone does their residency, they're more likely to practice. So if we can get more into the Spokane VA, that will help us with recruiting more doctors.
Do you think that's enough to try to alleviate this doctor shortage that has plagued VAs everywhere, but also in Spokane? And if not, what else can we do to try and deal with that doctor shortage?
Well, this would be a huge step in the right direction if we can get more residencies at the Spokane VA and get it to be a teaching hospital. In addition to that, the VA has been very responsive as far as doing some contracting so that they can contract with doctors elsewhere to get them at the Spokane VA. I was very disheartened a couple of years ago when they shut down the emergency room because they couldn't recruit doctors. They didn't have enough doctors to keep the emergency room open. And I've been working very closely with them. I am excited that they have announced that they're going to open an urgent care 24/7 at the Spokane VA, which will ensure that a veteran can always go there. And they won't have to call a 1-800 number to get a pre-authorization to go to an emergency room. That was not working well. This is giving the veterans the certainty that they need. They can go to their urgent care 24/7 and then from there decide where best to get their needed care.
That was actually going to be my next question, talking about that 24-hour urgent care at the Spokane VA. We've heard a lot about that, but we have yet to hear about when it's actually going to happen. Do you have any indication of when veterans can expect that?
The last time they told me it was going to be this year, so I will have to get that. I'll have to get the update on when that is.
And you talked a little bit about the mental health crisis. It has obviously been a big issue for veterans everywhere, but especially here in Eastern Washington. So how are you actively working to make sure that they don't slip through the cracks?
Well, the good news with the Teaching Health Center is that there are residencies for psychiatry that are a part of the Teaching Health Center. And I just led the effort in Congress to get the Teaching Health Center expanded, as well as the funding for the residency program doubled. And that includes residency program for psychiatry. And if we can get this agreement with the Spokane VA, so more of those residencies are actually taking place at the Spokane VA, that is a way that we can make sure that we have the doctors to provide the care, and in this case, the important mental health care that our veterans need.
Over the last several years, you and I have gone back and forth when we talk about skyrocketing prescription drug costs. So what have you actively been doing in that regard? Last time we spoke, you said you had sat down and talked with the president. What are you doing when it comes specifically to those prescription drug costs for veterans as well as their families?
Well, I am pleased that President Trump has said that this is a priority for him, that he wants to take action to address prescription drug costs. He laid out in a speech a lot of different ideas that his administration is working on. I have been focusing on the PBMs, the pharmacy benefit managers. They're the go-betweens. So you have the pharmaceutical companies, and then you have the pharmacists themselves, and the PBMs are the go-betweens. And I have been for years now, but there's growing momentum, and the president mentioned this too. We need transparency. We need to know what those costs are, and so that we can make smarter decisions when it comes to the pharmacist is trying to get their prescriptions. I've also supported allowing the independent pharmacies to be able to negotiate drug prices together rather than them being singled out.
What about the Veterans Choice Program? That is something that in the past you have talked about great challenges when it comes to making that work. How can we improve it so that it does work better for veterans here in Eastern Washington?
The VA Mission Act that the president just signed is extending the VA Choice Program, and it also addresses some of the frustration. So this legislation is intended to make it a smoother transition for the veteran that lives in the rural areas or has to travel a long distance to actually go to a VA medical center and wants to seek that care in the community. The VA Mission Act is focused on providing a smoother transition for the veteran that wants to seek that care in the community.
What's still on your agenda? What do you think is the top of mind as we come into this next year? And if you were to win re-election, what is your top priority?
Well, I'm very encouraged by the economy in Eastern Washington, the job growth. And my priority is going to be more jobs, more opportunities. And in Eastern Washington, to see the improved economic numbers, to see the businesses that are expanding, small businesses that have the optimism to hire and expand. That's all good news for Eastern Washington, and making sure that people have an opportunity to find a good paying job, live in Eastern Washington, raise their family there, and enjoy the great quality of life that we do.
Anything else that you'd like to add as it relates specifically to veterans here at home and how a vote for you is a vote for veterans?
Well, you know, every day we are helping veterans. We are committed to making sure that veterans get the best care possible. And I would just encourage veterans that if they're having trouble to contact my office. We're helping veterans all the time. We're helping with different claims, disability rating, getting appointments. It's not the way that it should work, but we're here to help. And there's many examples where we've been able to help veterans. That's going to continue to be my priority.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Is there a top priority if you do win re-election when it comes to veterans that you would like to tackle?
Well, I'm going to continue to make sure that the VA is rolling out the red carpet for our veterans. This is an agency whose sole mission is to help our veterans. And yet too often I hear from veterans that they contact the VA and they feel like they're more of a burden. And there's a lot of good people that work at the VA. I've met with them too. It's the process, it's the bureaucracy that often gets in the way. And that's where the VA Mission Act is going to help. I'm going to continue to work on self-scheduling, the Faster Care Act, which would allow veterans to be able to go online or schedule appointments with an app rather than having to call the 1-800 number. I still want to work on tackling the medical record issue. The veterans need to have access to their medical records, and it needs to be smoother so that they can take that medical record with them where they need it, where they're going to get their care.
Thank you very much.
I don't want to, okay. So
no,
just the goal for me is that veterans aren't going to be told that they have to travel to Seattle or Boise or Portland, which I regularly hear from veterans, is that they have to travel these long distances. We want to improve this and make sure that they get the care when they need it as soon as possible.